And we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Unfiltered Report. My name is Ryan. Right now, what we're going to do is we are going to recap day two of the College World Series in Omaha. Wow, words are difficult. Omaha, Nebraska. Omaha, Nebraska. It was a great day of college baseball. Another spectacular day. Hopefully, it was not lost in the shuffle for those of you out there. Obviously, we've come on here. We talked about the NBA Finals, World Cup. But hopefully not lost in the shuffle. College World Series, two really good, really interesting games heading into the day that I was really looking forward to. We talked about it a little bit beforehand, but we're just gonna dive right into it. Oklahoma, Alabama kicked things off in Omaha, and we came on here. Listen, we talked a lot about the Atlanta regional between and that game seven, especially on June 1st between Oklahoma and Georgia Tech. Oklahoma walked them off. It's a theme throughout the last couple of days, especially momentum. Momentum is a huge thing in any sport, regardless regardless of the sport, regardless of the level, whether it's high school, college, professional, whatever it is, momentum is always. I mean, it's one of, if not the big, it's a huge factor. Let's just put it that way. Um, and look, Oklahoma took the momentum that they got from winning the Atlanta regional. They took that into Lawrence, Kansas, in their super regional, beat the doors off of them. And at a certain point, you just got to respect the momentum train that they got going on. And you got to tip your cap. It seems like at a certain point, you just kind of you gotta ride with the momentum and ride with what you're seeing and what they're doing. And I they're on a heater right now. They're on a hot streak. They just everything's clicked for them at the right time. We've said it before. The best teams don't always win necessarily. Not again, obviously Oklahoma is not some Cinderella story. I mean, it's Boomer freaking Sooner, man. I mean, they're in the SEC, pumping in a lot of money into the program for a long time. Like, it's not like this is some bottom feeder, you know, Cinderella story sort of deal like we talked about. But look, at the same time, at least in comparison to at least other teams in the SEC, Georgia Tech, even who they beat, like at a certain point you got to tip your cap. They're really Skip Johnson's got these guys playing the best baseball of the season. Uh, and right now, I mean, it's just a matter of who's going to stop these guys first. Because right now nobody can seem to stop them. Um, Look, they went in, they set the tone early, 2 runs in the top of the first, and they never relinquished that lead. That was all they needed. Before Cord Rager, the young freshman, never even took a step on the mound. He had a 2-0 lead. Didn't need much more than that. Everything else was just insurance. He gives you 7 innings, 3 hits, no walks, and 8 strikeouts. Only throws 88 pitches, and the reason for that is because given the fact that before, in the eighth inning, they were already up 5-0. And then in the eighth inning, they tacked on 4 extra insurance runs. And credit to Skip Johnson, the thought process, I'm sure, was, hey, you know what? Uh, Pitch counts not as high as maybe if it was a closer game and instead of 9-0, if it was maybe 3-0, maybe you leave them out there and let them go for the complete game. I've been always a big proponent on here, and I'll continue to be. I love seeing starters go deep into games and go 7, 8, 9 innings, high pitch counts. I love that shit. I live for it. I think obviously it's a big thing we've talked about. Like, sometimes like there's this notion that like once you get to like 100 pitches, your arm's gonna fall off or something. Like in many ways, um, I think that's why I love the college game, especially. They let their starters go deeper in the games. They let them start, and then a couple of days later in the tournament, they'll let them come back and pitch, a couple of innings. And sometimes they'll do that with a higher pitch count than what Core Rager had at 88. But I thought it was a smart decision by Skip Johnson to take him out with the big lead that they had. And again, at that point, we mentioned on the flip side with Chance and Cole yesterday with West Virginia, who didn't pitch anywhere nearly as well as Mr. Rager did earlier in Omaha. With the lower pitch count, these both of these guys were probably going to come back and pitch later on anyways if given the opportunity in relief. But now you might be able to get a couple of extra bullets in the chamber, if you will, a couple of extra, maybe an extra inning or two out of these guys that you wouldn't have otherwise. So that part is always an interesting part to caveat. So I thought it was a great decision there. It was an interesting decision as well to throw in LJ Mercurius. Um, for the last 2 innings in relief, but I do like the rationale where you want to get him out there, let him get a feel for Omaha, because LJ Mercurius is going to be a big part of whatever success Oklahoma is going to have in Omaha as well. So let him get a feel for Omaha in a 9-0 game. Let him pitch 2 innings. So that way, honestly, I thought that was a great decision as well to put him in and to take out Mr. Rager instead of letting him go for the complete game, take him out after 88 pitches. Get LJ some work, and then let Cole Rager come back in a couple days. Assuming Oklahoma's still around and kicking it by then, which they're going to be in the winners bracket, so it gives him the opportunity to come back and pitch in relief. And then again, LJ Mercurius will be a big part of it. We mentioned Dayton LaChance. He continues his hot streak in the year of the catcher. He had a 2-run homer in the top of the 6th inning. Overall, just a really rock solid performance. Jackson Woods continues to impress. You go up and down the lineup. Deshaun Harris in the 7th spot continues to be someone that I enjoy watching. He's a really fun player to watch. Look, they're firing on all cylinders right now. They wore some really nice jerseys earlier today. If you're into that sort of thing, look, things are looking up for Boomer Sooner. It was a really tough day for Alabama on the flip side. They really couldn't get anything going all day offensively. Only managed 5 hits on the afternoon throughout the entire game. And on top of that, not only 5 hits throughout the entire game, but they didn't hit a single extra base hit the entire game. It was 5 hits and 5 singles, and that was it for them. And then they didn't get a single walk the entire game either, if you can believe that. So 5 singles, no walks for Alabama. About as poor of a performance offensively at the plate as you can get. But you got to give credit where it's due to Oklahoma. I think this is really less to do with Alabama. Maybe it's just they ran into a buzzsaw in Oklahoma that's really just firing on all cylinders right now. They're putting the ball in play. They're moving runners over. Dayton LaChance is on an absolute heater right now. Continues to go yard. Just couldn't have asked for a better start for Oklahoma. Couldn't have been a worse start for Alabama. And Alabama's behind the 8 ball for sure, heading into the losers bracket. Because going into game 2 of things, it couldn't have been a better day if you're Oklahoma. Because not only do you go in and you win 9-0, but Georgia goes in and beats their biggest rival, Texas, 7-1. I think that scoreline of 7-1. You look at that. We've mentioned Dylan Volantis before. Dylan Volantis did get the start today, whereas in previous renditions of this tournament, they opted to wait for him to pitch, and he didn't pitch the first day. But obviously, you're going against Georgia; that's a different beast. Look, I thought Dylan Volantis pitched really well. He got really unlucky. Texas had a really poor defensive showing today. So for Dylan Volantis, it's a bit unfortunate for him that he's on the hook for really 7 runs, but only 2 of them earned. So his ERA goes down a little bit to 2.08, or not down, but his ERA didn't necessarily go down, but yeah, it looks a lot worse than what it is. Only 2 earned, 6 1/3, 4 hits, 1 walk, 9 strikeouts. But the big story of this game, absolutely without a fraction of a doubt, is the guy who was on the other end of the mound over there for Georgia, and that would be Joey Volchko, the junior. This is a guy who we keep mentioning with a look ahead to the MLB draft, Joey Volchko might not be a guy who goes, he might not be the first pitcher off the board or anything like that. But we've mentioned Wes Johnson. Wes Johnson's a pitching guru, better than anybody in the country, in my opinion. Uh, as far as developing pitchers, and it's just what makes this Georgia team so fascinating because there are no breaks to this lineup. It's such a deep lineup, and they can beat you in so many different ways. So anything they give you on the mound with Wes Johnson as a pitching guru is a bonus, which is really strange how that works, but really awesome in many ways. But Joey Volchko, I mean, have yourself a fucking day, man. Complete game, not a complete game shutout, but the one run that he does give up is an unearned run. So 9 innings, 4 hits, 1 run, but the 1 run is not an earned run, only one walk. And how about this? 15 strikeouts, 113 pitches. He brings his ERA down from, again, we mentioned sometimes with these college pitchers, ERAs can be a little bit misleading. So it's not the only thing you want to lead with, maybe compared to Major League Baseball, maybe in some instances. But listen, Joey Volchko, have yourself a day. The heater was great today, but I mean, he even said it himself. It was the slider that really enabled him to be able to pitch in the manner that he did. That pitch was working for him today. I get 15 strikeouts speaks for itself. We mentioned Jacob Mizorowski last night. Joey Volchko, have yourself a day, man. 9 innings, complete game, 15 strikeouts. What a way for Georgia to set the tone in game one for them in Omaha. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better performance for them. I mean, this Georgia team continues to impress me more and more each day. Rylan Luho went yard again. Feels like he's going yard every day in a tournament. It feels like, uh, you know, just an all around really great performance for Georgia. I mean, Texas, that's a really good Texas ball club, and they ran into a buzzsaw today in Joey Volchko. And again, Dylan Volantis a bit unfortunate to be on the hook for as many runs as he did. He pitched really well. He just, sometimes you go against the guy who's just on one, and Joey Volchko was absolutely, I mean, far and away his best performance of the season. We mentioned last year Gage Wood went out there and had a no hitter of a lifetime against Murray State. Gage Woods is now a guy who's one of the top prospects in the Philly system. He'll be a guy we do in our we'll talk about more in our MLB deep dive with the farm systems, which stay tuned for that for sure. But all in all, Georgia continued to impress me more and more every game. I mean, that's just a remarkable thing that Wes Johnson's been able to do and build over there at Georgia. I mean, I know obviously that they've been pumping some good money into the program as well, but Wes Johnson deserves a ton of credit. I mean, that's just a really, really damn good ball club. So you couldn't ask for a better day if you're Oklahoma that your rival Texas loses and you beat Alabama 9-0. And you couldn't ask for a better day if you're Georgia to set the tone. Uh, to get a complete game like that from Joey Volchko really sets the tone for you. Again, continue to talk about momentum. I mean, you want to talk about, force meeting force, and what is the saying? Unstoppable force meets a movable object. I mean, Oklahoma, Georgia is going to be a dandy on Monday in Omaha. So we're going to set that up Monday at 11 a.m. Is going to be Alabama and Texas in an elimination game. And then Georgia, Oklahoma on Monday in the winner's bracket at 4 o'clock. I am very, very fascinated to see how that Georgia Oklahoma game goes because, as I've mentioned repeatedly, Oklahoma knocked out my Yellow Jackets at Georgia Tech. Again, I'm an LSU guy, and at Cal State Fullerton, man. Go Titans, baby. Tusks up. But you know what? You know, I felt like Georgia and Georgia Tech were on a collision course. Georgia's done their part. And the more and more that these games go by, I mean, you just have to give you credit to Oklahoma. And it goes to show you that, Georgia Tech in many ways, it continues, look, they just unfortunate for them, for Georgia Tech that they had Oklahoma in their regional as a number 2 overall national seed, which I'm sure they'll look in hindsight and say, hey, committee, thanks for that. But look, my point is Oklahoma took care of Georgia Tech in that regional in Atlanta. And now in the winner's bracket, we've got Georgia and Oklahoma. I'm gonna ride with Georgia. I'm gonna stick with that, but we'll see if Oklahoma continues to momentum it up, and if they can end up in a winner, in a two and 0 spot where they basically just need to win one time. But look, I think that's going to be a dogfight. It's going to be an incredible game. I, for one, can't wait to watch it Monday night. I hope everybody out there will join in the occasion and really watch a great SEC game in Omaha between Georgia and Oklahoma. But then in that elimination game as well between Alabama and Texas, I'll take Texas to knock out Alabama. But I mean that's a coin flip toss up too. I mean it's not like Alabama's a again it's not like Alabama's a shitty team or anything. I mean it's one of the best teams in the country. But I'm gonna take Texas. I'm gonna take Georgia, and it's gonna set up a Texas Oklahoma elimination game. That's my prediction. We'll come back on Monday and we'll update as we go. Also, we talked about it yesterday. Um, Troy and Ole Miss in an elimination game coming up in about 3 hours and 48 minutes here on the West Coast, 11 a.m. Troy and Ole Miss. Can't wait to see that one. I hope Troy can keep their season alive. I'll be rooting for them to stick around. But you know what? That's a really good Ole Miss baseball team. Troy's gonna have their hands full. I think it's gonna be a 9 inning battle. And then the 4 p.m. game later today between West Virginia and North Carolina. Can't wait for this one as well. Two really evenly matched teams who can, we've talked about it multiple times now. They're the two programs that have made it to three consecutive super regionals. Now they meet in Omaha in the winners bracket. We mentioned that the SEC is king in college baseball. With that statistic, it really goes to show you that in the last couple of years, these have been really two of the best programs, especially outside of the SEC. And now they get a chance to showcase that in Omaha, which has really been the SEC Invitational. It feels like, especially this year with five SEC teams. But I really can't wait to watch that one. I think the West Virginia faithful are going to show up. I think I think West Virginia will take it. But again, if North Carolina come in and win that game, you're not going to see me shocked or anything like that. That's a really, really damn good North Carolina ball club, who, by the way, have won 51 games heading into that game, which outside of Georgia is the most of any team in the field. So, look, so North Carolina would be, either of those two teams. I think are definitely in the driver's seat. Whoever wins that game, I'm going to ride with Georgia on the other side of the bracket still, and we'll continue to update that throughout the tournament. But I thought it was a really, really fun day of baseball in Omaha. I thought again, Texas and Georgia, maybe not as close as the score line suggests. Or maybe not as big of a blowout, I should say, as the score suggests. Obviously 7-1. In the sense, I guess, of my point, Dylan Volantis, really, I think did the best he could, but they just ran into a buzzsaw. And credit to Georgia, man. They're a wagon. I can't wait again to watch these four games coming up Sunday and Monday. Starting with Troy and Ole Miss here. I think that's going to be a spectacular game to really set the tone for day three in Omaha. So, again, we'll come back here tomorrow. We'll recap day three with a look ahead to day four, which kind of already did that a little bit, but we'll do it furthermore. So please stay locked in with us for the College World Series. I hope you enjoy it. Really, really do. Before we end recording, we'll just do a little bit of a Major League Baseball conversation just as far as the games today. There are a couple of things that we haven't mentioned. Last night we mentioned, Mizorowski, Christopher Sanchez. We throw out Yamamoto in there, and Yamamoto continues to amaze and continues to impress me as well. He's absolutely in that conversation as well, by the way, with those guys. I mean, it just goes to show you the depth. Also, shout out to my guy, Chase Burns. I forgot to mention him last night, too. The Tennessee Wake Forest product. Really love watching him pitch, too. But going back to Yamamoto, what a start for him. Yamamoto on the road against the White Sox today, which we'll talk about the White Sox in just a second. Yamamoto had a perfect game heading into the eighth inning. He was 4 outs away from a perfect game. Mookie Betts boots a grounder. It's an error, so the perfect game goes away. But he ends the eighth inning with the no hitter intact. Heads into the ninth inning, 3 outs away, and then unfortunately surrenders a leadoff homer to Tristan Peters to lead off the bottom of the ninth. But all in all, you want to talk about Yamamoto. How about this? Eight and a third, obviously the one hit, one run that we mentioned. No walks, 7 strikeouts, a season high in pitches, brings that ERA down to 2.52, second in the league right now in WHIP. I mean, he's just a masterful pitcher. He came pretty close to a no hitter last year against the Orioles before his incredible postseason run. I think Yamamoto's as good a bet as anybody in Major League Baseball to get a no hitter at some point sooner than later. Yamamoto, like I just have nothing but good things to say about this dude. I mean, he's such a joy to watch on the mound. Um, I mean, what he's able to do, the way he's able to mix his pitches, the way he's able to keep hitters off balance. He's always in control. It seems like he gets better every start, which is remarkable to me. He's just such a joy to watch. He's really, I mean, it's just one of many really great starters to watch these days. Whether we got Christopher Sanchez coming up in a couple of hours here as well. He'll be running congruently. You'll be able to watch Christopher Sanchez against the Brewers. You'll be able to watch Germany Curacao. You'll be able to watch Troy Ole Miss all at the same time. I would highly recommend that to the people out there. Definitely do so. But yeah, look, I got nothing but good things to say about Yamamoto. This guy's a joy to watch. Um, Unfortunate that he couldn't get the no hitter or the perfect game, rather. But he has nothing to be disappointed in. Also, if you just to put this in perspective with Yamamoto, if you go back to Yamamoto's last start that he had before this one, Yamamoto's previous start was against the Angels, where he went 8 innings, 2 hits, 1 run, no walks, and 4 strikeouts. Before that, 5 and a third, 5 hits, no runs, 2 walks, 10 strikeouts against the Phillies. Against the Brewers, 7 innings, 7 hits, 1 run, 1 walk, 3 strikeouts. Against the Padres, 7 innings, 3 hits, 1 run, 2 walks, 8 strikeouts. He had a tough start against the Giants on May the 12th. 6 and a third, 6 hits, 5 runs, no walks, 8 Ks, and then 6 innings, 5 hits, 3 runs, 1 walk, and 8 strikeouts against the Astros. But all things considered, if you take away the Giants and the Astro starts, and you look at that Padre start on down, he's only given up 4 runs in his last 4 starts, 7 innings against the Padres. His last 5 starts, only 4 runs, 7 innings against the Padres, 7 innings against the Brewers, 8 against the Angels, 8 and a third against the White Sox, and then in the one start where he only went 5 and a third, he struck out 10 guys on the Phillies. But again, going back to the point I was going to make is if you go back to Yamamoto's previous start against the Angels, he retired the final 22 hitters that he faced. So if you do the math, before he gave up that solo homer in the ninth inning, he had retired 45 consecutive hitters, which tied Mark Burley for the second longest streak in MLB history, behind Yasmiro Petit. Mark Burley did his in 2009. Petit did his in 2014. For those of you that remember Yasmiro Petit, big blast from the past, but he was a fun guy to watch back in the day as well. And obviously Mark Burley, got nothing but good things to say about him. And then you want to talk about perfect games and whatnot. Mark Burley always was fun watching always was fun to watch Mark Burley back in the day. Always was in control of his pitches, was always in the strike zone. And Yamamoto, again, Got nothing but good things to say about him. One of the best pitchers in the sport. I mean, that's why I think a lot of times these like ranking things and whatnot. I mean, you're splitting hairs. I mean, between Yamamoto and Sanchez and Mizorowski, Otani's been incredible, and Chase Burns we mentioned, Cam Schlittler. I mean, you go down the list, all these guys. A guy like Trey Savage. I mean, it's a great time to be a fan of starting pitching at the moment with some of these aces. We want to continue to give these guys some love. I mean, really, every time these guys take the ball every fifth day is appointment viewing. As we say, it's not entertainment, it's sport. But if you're looking to be entertained, I mean, there's no better way to be entertained than watch any of these guys pitch. So again, credit to Yamamoto. About as good of a start as you can have. Something that we haven't talked about the last couple of days that I think deserves some love and being talked about. The Athletics. We mentioned Sacramento when we were talking about the a little bit with their fan base and the Kings. We're going to continue to talk about them. One of the things we want to do in a future episode, it'll be more of a specific, more niche episode as opposed to these more day to day episodes as well. But again, we're trying to find a nice balance between these day to day stuff and then don't forget about the Brendan Sorsby Texas Tech conversation. One of the things we really want to talk about is MLB expansion. Um, Obviously, the A's are moving to Las Vegas. That's one part of it. There's been a lot of chatter about some of these teams wanting new ballparks. Tampa Bay wants a new ballpark, for example. So we're going to do a deep dive on that. There's been some big chatter in the NFL circles regarding new stadiums. So we're going to do one of those stadium conversations that I've been looking forward to for a long time that we haven't done in a couple of years, it feels like. So stay tuned for that. Definitely want to talk about MLB expansion because, as I mentioned, the A's, when they decided to move from Oakland to Vegas, Oakland said, fuck you. We don't want you anymore. So they went to Sacramento. Sacramento welcomed them with open arms. And, there's been recent rumblings about Sacramento making a big aggressive push uh, to be one of the next expansion franchises. But contrary to the NBA's expansion conversation, well, that one seems to be a little bit more cut and dry at the moment with Seattle and Las Vegas getting two expansion teams. We mentioned Vegas getting an existing team takes that away from Major League Baseball as an expansion market. So there's a lot more suitors for future Major League expansion franchises. There are a lot of cities that are angling for that. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to deep dive it. There's a lot of cities across the United States that are angling for a franchise. Got a lot of thoughts there, but also there's a lot of fact out there. I always like to say we got to separate opinion from fact. I'll report the facts on that and then let people come to their own conclusions of where they think Major League Baseball should go and what they should do. But I use all that as to set up the fact that the Athletics, this current series that they're playing against the Rockies, and then earlier in the week against the Brewers, have been playing these two series in Las Vegas. A little bit of a preview, if you will, for them when they move to Vegas. They're playing at the A's AAA ballpark in these two series. The ball's been flying out of there. I mean, it's been 107, 108 degrees in Vegas consistently. Stay tuned for Vegas again. By the way, summer league. We got some things in the works. Hopefully, that the people will enjoy in Sin City. Vegas is going to be the epicenter. In a month with summer league for the NBA. But right now, Vegas is hosting. They've got the last game in Vegas this weekend against the A's coming up in about 5 hours' time. The first game that they played on Monday against the Brewers was an absolute classic. You want to talk about a way to introduce yourself to Las Vegas. They played the Brewers. It was a 12 inning affair. The Brewers end up coming out on top, 15-14. Uh, 29 combined runs, longest game in terms of time so far this season in the MLB season. It was over a 4-hour game. Went back and forth. Since the A's lost that game in 12 innings, they've rattled off 4 consecutive victories in Las Vegas. Um, They listen, that A's lineup continues to impress me. You go down the list, Nick Kurtz to me is one of the best hitters in baseball. Continues to showcase how good he is. Fourth in the league in OPS, 16 homers and 50 RBIs, hitting 285, which 285 is the new 320 in many ways. Shea Langoliers has been great behind the dish. He's an everyday guy. You go up and down the list. They got some really good young players. They one of the lefties we mentioned a while back that we were going to talk about in our MLB farm system deep dive has since been called up. Gage Jump, he's been pretty solid for them in his first couple of starts. Gage Jump is a guy who started his career at UCLA, transferred to LSU. Uh, maybe didn't have the body of work in terms of innings pitched, but the A's took a gamble on him in the draft. When we do our MLB draft deep dive, we'll explain further in depth. Again, I think we talked about it a little bit before, but we'll do it again because, again, you can never talk about something more than one time. You can always add to it, always talk about it multiple times, where the MLB draft, contrary to other drafts, works in a different way where you have draft pools and you have each draft slot has like an allotment and you can spend over that slot, under that slot, as long as you maneuver the money that you have available. So the A's, they maneuvered their money in a way in which they were able to pay above the slot in which they took Gage Jump. They paid him a lot of money comparative to his draft slot to sign with the A's, and to get him to come over there. Uh, so look, I think Oakland, rest in peace to Oakland. Sacramento, keep an eye on them as a potential expansion city. And then, with the A's moving to Vegas, obviously they're playing in the AAA ballpark. The ballpark that they're building is still being constructed. You're starting to see, more progress on that ballpark. Definitely excited to see what that looks like. Knock on wood, the next time that I'm able to be out there in Sin City, I'll be excited to kind of see how that ballpark construction is coming along. Again, I mentioned Sin City. Stay tuned. Um, but I just think obviously the A's are going to be a team to watch throughout the rest of this season. That AOS right now. We mentioned earlier in the year that the NL Central was going to be, maybe one of the more competitive divisions that it started off that way. The Brewers, credit to them, have really started to separate themselves from the pack. They're 4 games up on second place St. Louis right now. The Cubs are 6.5 back. They had a really, really rough losing streak. The Cubs did not too long ago. They've been a very streaky team. They've had 2 long winning streaks and a really long losing streak, all of which has led them 37 and 34 at the moment. The Pirates are kicking at 1 game above 500 in fourth place, 7.5 games back. And then the Reds are in fifth place, 3 games under 500, 9.5 back. I think that makes a lot of sense too. That's not really too surprising. I mean, we've talked about it. I give a ton of credit to Milwaukee and what they've been able to do and how they've been able to year in and year out, regardless of postseason success. Just the fact that year in and year out they're competitive. Tampa Bay's a game back right now. The Yankees, they have 27 losses apiece, but they're a game back in a sense that the Yankees have played 2 more games, so the Yankees have 2 more wins. That division's been going neck and neck at the top. The Blue Jays are still 3 games under 500 right now. They're 9 games back. A half of the game behind them is the Baltimore Orioles, 34 and 38, and then the Red Sox continuing to flounder in last place, 10 games under 500, 12 and a half back of the Yankees. We mentioned the AL Central before. This has been a division that's been brutal for many, many years. Uh, we talked about the White Sox earlier against Yamamoto. The White Sox are a half game back at first place. Good for them. They've been competing. The Guardians in first place. The Guardians are a team as well, maybe in a similar breath as well to the Brewers and the Rays that continually, year in and year out, kind of find ways to compete regardless of payroll. Which we'll talk about that in due time. We got a deep dive coming. Stay tuned for that. It's all going to connect in due time with that deep dive. But going back to the AL West real quick too, right now is the most competitive division race in the sport. Seattle is a game up on the A's for first place in the division. Now, part of the reason that this division is the most competitive is because they've all been pretty, for lack of a better word, mediocre to start the year. Seattle's in first place and they're two games above 500, 37 and 35. The A's are smack dab at 500, 35 and 35. We mentioned similarly to the Rays. The only reason they're a game back is because they played two less games. So essentially similar to the AL East, they're basically as close to tied as you can be. Texas is two games back of the division lead. They're 34 and 36. And then the Astros, we mentioned earlier in the year that they were really struggling. They've been able to kind of claw their way back. And yes, they're six games under 500 right now at 33 and 39, but only four back of the division. So they're still around, still hanging it, still got a shot. And then I guess the Angels are 7.5 back too technically, but oh boy. Um, we'll get to the Angels in a second, and I want to piggyback to the AL Central as well, because I'd like to do a little full scope of where we're at here on June 14th. Because I mentioned we want to start doing day to day MLB conversations. Look, the AL Central's as my guy D likes to say, the most dross division in the sport for a long time. We're gonna talk a lot about not the Twins, the Tigers and the Royals. Um, I mean, two really disappointing teams this year. I'm not really surprised by either, to be honest with you, but I think either way, I mean, you want to talk about disappointing seasons. But on the flip side, I do want to give some credit where it's due to the White Sox. We've bashed them a little bit in the past, and similar ownership group to the Bulls. Also on the subject of the Bulls, rest in peace to Stacey King, the color commentator for the Bulls. We didn't mention that when that happened about a week ago. Also, rest in peace to Alden Smith, who passed away earlier, way too young. Some others that I've forgotten probably but gone too soon. And Stacey King made Bulls games worth watching. They've been mediocre to ass for many years, but I've mentioned big DeRozan guy, and in those years watching the Bulls, especially once Lonzo got hurt, those last 2 years, Adam Amin and Stacey King really made those games worth watching. And even obviously DeRozan's long gone. I try to stay tuned into the sport. Obviously, I watched a lot of Bulls games even without those guys there. Um, Bulls games will not be the same without Stacey King. Um, Rest in peace, man. Gone too soon. It was just always a fun listen. But as much as we've bashed the ownership group of the Bulls and the White Sox, credit to the White Sox. They've taken their lumps. They've done a good job of building their farm system back up. The Garrett Crochet trade was incredible business. What they were able to get back in that trade. Um, and the return on investment on that is still not fully there yet either, and it's already paying off for them. Obviously, Garrett Crochet was brilliant last year and is a great talent, but I think it was a great trade by the White Sox. It was a very proactive move, which I really like that. And we're going to talk about the Tigers more because there's a big Tarek Skubal conversation that I think needs to be had where, you know, if the Tigers want to be smart, you got to trade them. You really do. We'll talk about that further, but I just don't see a scenario in which the Tigers can look themselves in the mirror and keep them. You have to flip them. You have to inject some juice into your farm system. Give yourself a chance to be able to come back from this season and make the most of it. Um, they've got a couple of talented prospects still waiting in the wings, so it's not like they're totally bereft of talent. But I think that they really do need to capitalize on the fact that they have Tarek Skubal, and the fact that he's back healthy, mind you. When there was some concerns that with the elbow injury originally, he was able to come back. Um, they have to flip him. If they don't, it would be the stupidest thing in baseball. I mean, it would be an Angels level of stupidity for those of you out there to really, like I always said, the Angels have been, they've never been proactive in that aspect. What they did when Otani was definitely going to leave, like, keeping hanging on to, Otani was one thing. You got to flip Tarek Skubal. Like I get, at least with Otani is different. I always thought they should have flipped Mike Trout back in the day too. I stand by that to this day. Um, Look, if you're Detroit, you know Tarek Skubal is not going to sign long term, and even if he was going to, you know, I think you just got to flip him. You got to flip him. You got to get some juice into your farm system. Obviously, there's the argument that you've got a guy like that, guys like that don't grow on trees, but you know what? Trade chips like that don't grow on trees either, and you got to cash in on that while you can, because that's what good organizations do. So I think Detroit really needs to flip them, and in Kansas City, I mean, we talked about them a while back with the ballpark thing. I mean, I know they won the World Series about a decade ago, but they've really been kind of floundering now for a couple of years. I know they made the playoffs not too long ago, but they really weren't able to build off of that. They've been really disappointing. Um, but again, credit to the White Sox. They're half a game back. It'd be really cool to see the White Sox back in the playoffs. It's a fan base that I think would love some relevant baseball, and I think would be fun to watch some playoff baseball there. Um, I think they got a shot. Definitely, it's going to be them in Cleveland to the end. I think I don't think Detroit or Kansas City have the juice. Maybe they'll come back. 9.5, 10.5 back respectively. You've got the Twins sitting pretty in the middle, 32 and 40, 7 games back. Um, we'll continue to monitor that division, but good for the White Sox. After the year that they had last year, being as bad as they were last year, for them to kind of turn it around quickly and still have some prospects in the farm system that they haven't promoted. We did mention Braden Montgomery got called up the other day. It'll be really fun to watch him throughout the year and be able to talk about that on a daily basis and monitor that. But then flipping things over to the National League as well. The Atlanta Braves continue to play baseball at an elite level, best record in baseball right now, 8 games up on the Phillies. We mentioned the Phillies quite a bit. They ended up bouncing back from that Mizorowski one hitter. They end up beating the Brewers earlier today, 9-8, which sets up the rubber match with Christopher Sanchez on the bump here in less than 4 hours against Kyle Harrison, who, mind you, Kyle Harrison's ERA jumped up about a whole run in that Las Vegas game earlier in the week. Just to keep in mind how much the ball's been flying out in Las Vegas, which I didn't mean to get sidetracked and go away from that conversation. So we'll get back to that. But the Phillies, we mentioned them firing Rob Thompson, Don Mattingly interim. They're now 6 games over 500. The Nationals have been one of, if not the best lineups in the sport this season. 1 game over 500. The Marlins 1 game under 500. Those are two teams. Ironically, I think if you mesh those two teams together, you'd have a pretty damn good ball club. If you put the Marlins and their ability to kind of crank out pitching with the Marlins, with the Nationals lineup, I think you'd have yourself a pretty damn good ball club. But I think those are two teams I'll be interested to monitor not only throughout the rest of the year, but moving forward. Um, it just so happens that they play in a division with the Braves and the Phillies, who are two really good teams. The Mets, 8 games under, 8 games under 500. 15 back. They've been playing a little bit better baseball. They promoted some young guys that have played some pretty good baseball for them, but still, all in all, I mean, a very disappointing season so far for the Mets. At this juncture in the season, we're almost at the halfway point, mind you. We're very close to the halfway point of this 162 game season, which is a perfect point for us to pick up our day-to-day coverage from here on out. So just giving us the ability to do that. We mentioned the Central earlier, and then the NL West, the Dodgers, about a game and a half back of the best record in baseball with the Braves, 45 and 26, 8 games up on the Padres. The Padres had a really, really rough stretch at baseball. They've really struggled in the last month or so. The Diamondbacks, a game and a half back. There was some second year in a row now where Torey Lovullo had to come out and address some media rumblings about Ketel Marte, and kind of dispel those rumors. The Diamondbacks kicking it at 500, 35 and 35, 70 games in. Like we mentioned, we're getting closer and closer to the halfway point. We're about 70 games in. give or take. Each team, like we mentioned, has played. Some have played more than others. The Giants. Shout out again to our Bear Area correspondent, my guy Malik. I love you, brother. Can't wait to see what Malik's got in store for Ale La Blue. Uh, that's gonna be a blast. And I know it came at a perfect time for him because I know he doesn't want to talk about the Giants at the moment. Um, it is good to see at least Bryce Eldridge up and getting some ABs. Um, he had a walk off a couple of days ago, and what was a really topsy turvy comeback for the Giants over the Nationals. They scored 10 runs in the eighth and the ninth, walk off grand slam for Bryce Eldridge the other day. But they're 15 games under 500, 17 back of the Dodgers, and because of the way that MLB's draft works, the Giants will not be able to have a high draft pick next year, even though they're at the bottom of the league this year, because of the fact that the Giants are going to have a top pick this year, coming up in about a month. And then the Rockies, I mean, you want to talk about dross. I mean, well, like I said in the past, I mean, obviously I'm a Dodger guy through and through, but I would honestly, I mean, they'll that probably, it would be a great opportunity to be able to run the Rockies and be able to turn that organization around. I know Dan O'Dowd, who does work with MLB Network, especially for the draft coverage, used to be the general manager of the Rockies. Seems to be a solid guy, but I know he's on record saying that one of the things that he regrets when he was the general manager of the Rockies way back when was getting, putting in the humidor, which obviously the ball still flies out of course field, but I think they really, I think he said he regrets it. And I think it would be factual where they really should have leaned into course field even more than what they do now. I think you could build a successful team in Colorado. I think it just comes down to ownership. First year of Paul DePodesta at the helm, so that's going to be something when we do our farm system deep dive and when we cover the MLB draft in a month. That's going to be part of our coverage. We're going to see how Paul DePodesta coming over. For those of you who either remember Paul DePodesta, we've talked about him a couple of times at the Unfiltered Report. Peter Brand and Moneyball was based on Paul DePodesta. Him and Billy Bean worked many years together with those Moneyball A's. Paul DePodesta spent many a year with the Cleveland Browns. Uh, Speaking of the Cleveland Browns, um, also there were some big moves in the NFL. We have not forgotten. We're gonna recap those big trades that happened in the Cleveland Browns. We've talked about them a lot in the last couple months. We're going to continue to talk about them, especially because there's a fascinating parallel with the Cleveland Browns that I think a lot of people would say, Cleveland Browns, what are you talking about? But there's a comparison with the Cleveland Browns and Andrew Berry, their GM. There's a connection there between a couple of other sporting franchise executives that I think is a really fascinating deep dive conversation that I'll be looking forward to having in due time very shortly. So, we always like to say here, the NFL might be king in America as far as how it's covered. But here we want to give love to all sports. So it's not that we have nothing against talking about the NFL and college football in June. We're going to do it again. Brendan Sorsby. We're going to recap those trades. There were some big extensions as well. Uh, Shortly after that, and before you know it, it's going to be training camp. So don't forget about that as well. We got those conversations for people to look forward to. But going back to the Rockies, Paul DePodesta in year one. We're gonna see what he's able to do in a draft. Maybe what they do at the trade deadline. Maybe if they're able to make a move or two and flip whatever they can. Uh, so that conversation will be up in the air. Obviously, they're the worst record in baseball right now. Another year mired in abysmal mediocrity for the Rockies. But at least you would have to hope with Paul DePodesta at the helm that maybe he'll be the one to turn things around because I think Coors Field, the city of Colorado, Rockies fans, I mean, it's a beautiful ballpark. It's a ballpark I would love to go watch a game at one day. Never been to Colorado before. Would love to take part of that, be a part of the Mile High atmosphere and that altitude. Seems like it would be an interesting experience. Um, I hope that Paul DePodesta is able to turn things around there. So we'll continue to monitor that and see the foundational pieces that they're building, and we'll come in and say, hey, like we mentioned with the Browns, like the Browns have been abysmal for so many years, but I think they're doing things right at long last, and the Browns are building something. At the moment, you don't necessarily see with the Rockies, obviously, but that's because there haven't really been many opportunities for Paul DePodesta to really do much. So as we get more data points, we can then come in and say, hey, you know what, the Rockies are actually starting to hey, they're shifting the corner. Look out for that. Or you know what, Paul DePodesta maybe still kind of being hamstrung by ownership a little bit. Time will tell. So stay tuned for that as we continue to have these day-to-day conversations. But I did want to go back real quick just to that Vegas point. Obviously, the A's are going to be moving to Vegas. We talked about the fact that we're going to talk about MLB expansion and some of those teams, and then the stadiums. We mentioned the NFL stadiums and that conversation. The NBA's got a couple of stadium things coming up, like the Dallas Mavericks. So again, that's going to be a fun deep dive we're going to do. Um, but yeah, I'm really looking forward to continuing to going day by day, talking about all these different sports on the field, off the fields, current, future projections, all these different things, draft prospects, you name it. Again, we haven't even gotten into the high school prospects for this upcoming MLB draft. So there's just a lot that we're looking forward to talk about here. Um, Really, really can't wait to do so. I give a huge, huge tip of the cap to all of the stars of the Unfiltered Report for being a part of this journey and for continuing to be a part of it. Um, so stay with us day by day. We'll continue to add to these conversations, and I know sometimes, it's one of those things. We're gonna continue to do the best we can to really lock things in. But before we do end this Major League Baseball conversation, we went division by division. I do want to talk about the wild card standings just to paint that picture of where we're at today. We went division by division in the American League. Obviously, the Rays are about as close to being tied with the Yankees as you can be, but mathematically speaking, they're a game behind because they played two less games. So technically, right now, they're in the top spot in the AL wildcard race. You would imagine that whichever of those two teams doesn't win the division will end up getting one of those wild card spots. We mentioned the White Sox. Credit to them. Not only are they a half game back of the division, but they're actually, given the state of the American League right now, they're second in the wild card race right now, 5 games over 500. And then we mentioned the A's, full circle moment here. They're in that last wild card spot right now at 35 and 35, with the Rangers a game back of them, the Blue Jays a game and a half back of the A's, the Orioles, as disappointing as they've been, only two back of the wild card. The Astros only three back. The Twins are four back. The Red Sox, we mentioned them. They're only five back of the wild card right now. The Angels are six and a half back, and then the Tigers and the Royals. The Tigers are six and a half back, and the Royals are seven and a half back. So that speaks to the state of the American League right now, just to kind of paint a picture of that, where uh, just to kind of put things in perspective here, the Kansas City Royals are 28 and 43, which they're tied with the Giants for the second worst record in baseball, and they're seven and a half back of a playoff spot. So that puts things in perspective of where we're at right now, June 14th, kind of setting the stage for future conversations as well. You get the Angels and the Tigers that at 29 and 42, they're tied for the third worst record in baseball. They're six and a half back of a wild card spot. The Red Sox, as bad of a season as it's been, 10 games under 500, they're only five out of a wild card spot. Um, I mean, if you really think about it, all these teams are still alive. As remarkable as it is to say, none of these teams are really out of the race, with a lot of baseball left. Mathematically speaking, there's a lot of baseball left. So they're, by all intents and purposes, the Royals, the Tigers, the Angels, they could all make a run theoretically speaking, and they're not that far out. I mean, whether that happens or not, I'm not saying that is going to happen, obviously, but it just goes to show you the state of the American League right now, where the A's at 500 in that last wild card spot, and then one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine teams all under 500 right now in the American League. And not only that, but they're all within a game and 7.5 games of a playoff spot, just to kind of put things in perspective there of the state of the American League. But then on the National League side of things, right now, the Cardinals are first in the wild card race. Uh, they're about a game up on the Phillies right now, who are in second in the wild card race. We mentioned the Padres as and the Cubs, two teams that have really, really struggled in the last month or so. Both the Padres and the Cubs, who probably, yeah, they've struggled more than anybody in baseball in the last 2 months. But because of maybe the strong starts that they had, they built themselves enough of a buffer where both of them are tied for that last wild card spot right now. The only difference being, of course, is that the Cubs have played two more games, but contrary to what we talked about, where the Yankees and the Rays, there's a game back because the Yankees have two more wins and the same amount of losses. These guys have the same amount of wins and losses. The Padres are 36 and 33, the Cubs are 37 and 34, but they're both tied for that third wild card spot. You've got the Pirates one game back, the Nationals, we mentioned them, arguably the best lineup in the sport so far this season through a couple of months. They're only a game back. The Diamondbacks are a game and a half back. The Marlins are two back. The Reds are only three back. And then the Mets hanging around only 5.5 back, all things considered. They've been able to dig themselves out of that deep hole and give themselves a little bit of a chance to stay in a race. And then you've got the Giants 9 back, and then the Rockies 11 back. So, with the, expanded playoff and that third wild card spot, and given the fact that we still have a lot of baseball left, mathematically speaking, a lot of these teams are still in it. Really, the Rockies and the Giants seem to be pretty far behind the eight ball. But I mean, the Mets at 5.5 games back of the last wild card spot, by all means, are not out of the race. The Reds only three back, Marlins two, D-backs at a game and a half, and then the Nationals and the Pirates only a game back. So this is going to be an ever evolving conversation. This is just a snapshot of where we're at now with the playoff picture, the division leaders, the wild card. But yeah, right now, Rockies worst record in the league. The Braves got the best record. The Dodgers and the Brewers are on their heels. The Giants with the second worst record in baseball. Only a game separates the Giants from the Angels and the Tigers. You've also got the Royals, who've got the same record as the Giants, and then the Red Sox with the same amount of wins as the Angels and the Tigers. The only difference is that they've played three less games, so they only have 39 losses compared to 42. So for all we know, the Red Sox will be in that tier. Maybe they'll win three in a row, and they'll be tied with the Twins in terms of wins. Obviously, the Twins will play more games, but look, it's an ever evolving conversation. Before you know it, it's going to be the trade deadline. It's going to be the All-Star break before that. So there's a lot of baseball left. There's going to be trades. There's going to be prospect promotions. There's going to be all sorts of, some players are going to get hot. Teams are going to get hot. Players are going to slump. Teams are going to slump. It's a long season. It's a day-to-day sport, and that's what we're going to try to do, day-to-day coverage. So we just wanted to give a little snapshot, paint that picture. So now that we're almost halfway through the regular season, again, we're about 70 games, give or take, into the season. Some teams have played less than 70, some teams exactly at 70, so on and so forth. A lot of baseball left. Can't wait to get into it all. We've highlighted all these future discussions as well. There's lots in the works. Can't wait for it all. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ryan. This has been the Unfiltered Report. I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. It is now 7:55 in the morning here on the West Coast. The sun is out. It's a new day, new opportunity. It's another day above ground with breath in the body. We try not to take it for granted as best we can. Hug your loved ones. Make the most of it. Enjoy your Sunday. And hey, stay safe out there, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy a full 15-game Major League Baseball slate. Enjoy day 3 of the College World Series. Enjoy the Stanley Cup Finals, Game 6 between the Hurricanes and the Golden Knights. And enjoy day 4 of the World Cup with 4 matches. It's a beautiful day in sports. and so much more beyond that as well. Cheers.